I appreciate everyone gathering today for my wife.
At the funeral of a close friend, my husband referred to a woman I didn't know as his acquaintance. As my husband finished speaking and bowed, I stood up and shouted, "What on earth is this about? I am your wife, right?" The attention of the venue suddenly focused on me. There was a buzz around the room. My husband, perhaps noticing me for the first time, grew increasingly pale.
Huh? Why are you here?
That's my line. Explain yourself properly. As I glared at him, my husband, in a panicked expression, shouted at me.
Just go home. You have nothing to do with this.
Huh? Nothing to do with this? You. Before I could say anything, I was escorted out by the staff. At that moment, my anger reached its peak. Fine. If you're going to do that, I have an idea. After that, the husband, who had continued to betray his family, would face hell. My name is Susan Underwood. I am a 45-year-old working housewife. My family is from a land-owning family and runs a local real estate business. The land and real estate managed by our family make us, in a way, a wealthy family. My father, who is 70 years old, is the eldest son of the head family. He was the patriarch of the family and considered the boss among his relatives. He is a dignified but kind and gentle father to his children. And my mother is a gentle, laid-back housewife. I was born as their only daughter. After graduating from a women's university, I pursued my childhood dream of becoming an elementary school teacher. While my father seemed a bit disappointed that I didn't take over the family real estate business, he eventually blessed the path I chose. I remained single, dedicated to my teaching career into my late 20s. Although my concerned parents tried to set up arranged marriages several times, I continued to decline. It was during this time that I met Karen, who would later become my husband. After work, it was my daily routine to have coffee at a nearby cafe before heading home. One day, as usual, I went to the cafe, and due to a sudden rain shower, all the seats were taken. As I was acquainted with the owner, he asked me to sit with him, and I agreed. Karen was sitting in front of me at the time. At first, there was an awkward silence, but Karen broke it by commenting on the heavy rain. From there, casual conversation started. He worked as an employee for a nationwide rental agency and was the same age as me. Moreover, he lived nearby. When I mentioned my family's involvement in real estate, we found common ground. We exchanged contact information and went on several dates at that cafe, eventually leading to a relationship. After a year of dating, Karen proposed, and we became engaged. Bringing him to meet my parents, they were quite pleased, and my father said with a smile,
I never expected Susan to have such a partner. I support the marriage. I'm really happy.
Karen responded nervously.
Thank you, sir. I will make Susan happy.
My dad, satisfied with Karen's respectful response, then becomes serious.
Regarding our wishes for the marriage, if it's okay with you, Kieran, we would like you to become our son-in-law. Son-in-law?
Karen seems surprised. My father continues to explain to him.
Susan has no intention of quitting her job as a teacher, and ideally, we would like you to become the successor to our family company. You have qualifications in real estate, and I think it's not a bad proposition.
After thinking for a while, Karen tells my dad this.
I'll have to ask my dad for his opinion. I cannot reply to you right now, but I will think about it positively.
The following week, we went to Karen's father to seek permission for the marriage. Karen's mother had passed away early, leaving only his father at home. Upon hearing the discussion, Karen's father immediately gave his approval.
I respect your feelings. Karen, you take good care of Susan.
And so our marriage and Karen's acceptance into the family were decided. Karen left his job and started working at my family's real estate company. Meanwhile, I continued my job as a teacher. Within the first year of our marriage, I became pregnant. We welcomed a baby boy named Skylar. Despite the challenges of parenting, we overcame them successfully. Even now, 18 years into our marriage, we lead a simple and happy life. The only source of dissatisfaction is Kieran's increasingly busy work schedule for the past 5 years. He works late on weekdays, and weekends are consistently occupied with meetings or seminars, keeping him away from home. When Skylar was younger, we spent every day together, and on Kieran's days off, we used to go out somewhere. However, this abruptly changed 5 years ago. Skylar was in the upper grades of elementary school by then, and at an age when he wanted to be with his friends rather than his parents, so it wasn't a significant issue. When Skylar took the middle school entrance exam, my husband offered a little support and seemed uninterested. Naturally, the conversations between us, as a couple, drastically decreased. During the high school entrance exams, Kieran mostly offered words like, "Well, do your best," and provided minimal support, leaving me to handle almost all aspects of sending Skylar to tutoring, as well as supporting him through the exams. Frustrated, I spoke to Kieran once. "Hey, Kieran, lately it feels like you've been so immersed in work that you're neglecting the family. I want you to talk more with Skylar." At this, Kieran responded with a somewhat irritated expression. "He's not at an age where his parents need to constantly fuss over him, is he?" "But you don't even take time for us as a couple." "I've said it many times. I'm busy with work right now. This is a period of training until your father officially hands over the company to me. If I don't dedicate myself to the business, and it doesn't run smoothly, it will be a problem for you and the relatives, right?" "Well, yes, but..." With dissatisfaction still evident in me, Kieran let out a deep sigh. "I've been working hard since marrying into this family. Isn't it natural for you, as my wife, to understand that and support me?" "I understand. My father still operates the real estate company as the president. Kieran has become an executive, supporting my father and learning the business in the process." With the sense of indebtedness from requesting him to marry into the family, I couldn't press Kieran further. One day, amid such a life, I received a message on my phone, and the sender was Kayla, my friend from college. We were close friends since our university days, both aspiring to become teachers. Even after becoming teachers, we often dined together, and she attended my wedding, showing affection for Skylar. However, due to our busy schedules and my focus on Skylar's exams, we hadn't met for a while. I wonder what happened to Kayla. Since we haven't seen each other for a while, maybe she's inviting me for tea? While thinking about such things, I opened my phone and was so surprised that my eyes widened. It turned out to be a notice of Kayla's passing sent by her mother. "My daughter Kayla peacefully passed away after a year-long battle with illness." Despite feeling dizzy from that message, I called Kayla's number. Kayla's mother answered the phone immediately. According to her mother, Kayla had been battling cancer for a year. However, it was in vain, and she passed away yesterday. "That girl, Kayla, hadn't talked to you, Susan, about her illness. Perhaps she didn't want to burden you. She wasn't married, and if possible, I'd like to invite her friends to the funeral." Kayla's mother told me in tears, to which I replied in a tearful voice, "Of course." As it was mentioned that it was already too late for the wake, I decided to attend the farewell ceremony the next day. I reached out to friends from our school days and, feeling somewhat dazed, took out mourning clothes. "Kayla, why didn't you tell me? I can't believe I won't see Kayla again." Tears overflowed one after another. Even so, I had to properly say goodbye to Kayla. On the other hand, Kieran said he wouldn't be back until the 23rd due to a business trip and left the house in a hurry yesterday. Although I tried contacting my husband, he didn't answer the phone. I left a message saying I'm going to a friend's funeral, but he still hasn't read it. However, it's not the right time for that now. I went to sleep quietly, shedding tears for Kayla. The next day, I headed to Kayla's funeral venue. The funeral hall was spacious, and it seemed there was another funeral taking place in a different section. I approached the reception with Kayla's name, expressed my condolences, and entered the venue. When I saw the figure of my best friend inside, tears couldn't be stopped. The ceremony concluded smoothly, and I bid farewell to Kayla for the last time. As Kayla, placed in the hearse, was taken away, I clasped my hands again, shedding tears once again. Before leaving, I decided to go to the restroom and headed to the toilet at the far end. On the day, I caught a glimpse of the adjacent funeral hall. Huh? I inadvertently let out a gasp. Standing in front of the altar, bowing to the attendees, was none other than my husband, Kieran. Is this someone else's funeral? I didn't hear about this. I looked at the name in front of the venue. There it was, Samantha Kane. A name I didn't know. The young woman smiling in the portrait was unfamiliar to me, but my husband unmistakably stood there, offering greetings as if he were a family member. Unable to comprehend the situation, I stood frozen.
Please take a seat as the ceremony is about to begin.
The staff motioned to me to take a seat at the back of the hall, and I sat down. My husband continued to occupy the family seat as usual. Next to him, a man and a woman who seemed to be the parents of the woman were sitting crying. In the quiet venue, a voice echoed through the microphone.
Today, we have gathered to express our gratitude for my wife, Samantha.
The one who uttered those words was my husband, Kieran. I was left speechless and could only listen in silence.
Samantha passed away from a sudden heart attack 2 days ago. Even though it was unexpected, I am overwhelmed with grief.
The man, tearfully sharing his words, unmistakably appeared to be my husband. At that moment, I realized everything. This must be the funeral of Kieran's affair partner. And what is this about a wife? As Kieran finished speaking and lowered his head, I stood up and shouted, Kieran, what on earth is going on here? Am I not your wife? The attention of everyone in the venue shifted towards me. There was a buzz around the room. My husband, perhaps noticing me for the first time, grew increasingly pale.
Huh? Why are you here?
That's my line. Explain yourself properly. As I glared at him, my husband angrily yelled at me with a troubled expression.
Just go home. You have nothing to do with this.
Huh? Nothing to do with this? You... At that moment, Karen spoke through the microphone.
I apologize for the disturbance. She is my ex-girlfriend from the past who has been stalking me. She has some mental instability and tends to have extreme misunderstandings.
What?
I never thought she would appear at my wife's funeral. We will have her removed immediately, so please, rest assured. Staff, please.
Before I could say anything, I was grabbed by the staff on both sides and dragged outside. The door closed in front of me, and a sense of despair overwhelmed me. At that moment, my anger reached its peak, betraying the family without a proper explanation, treating me like a stalker, and kicking me out. What on earth was he thinking? Fine, if that's the way it is, I have my own plans. 1 hour later, I stood with my arms crossed at the top back entrance, waiting for the right moment. The door opened, and the coffin was placed in the hearse. Kieran, crying, tried to get into the passenger seat of the hearse. I immediately rushed out and grabbed his arm.
Huh? Are you still here?
Kieran wore a look of shock. and the surrounding mourners also looked at me with confusion. Enough already. Explain properly in front of these people.
Huh? I told you, you're my stalker ex-girlfriend. Steph, get this woman out of here quickly.
At that moment, a low voice echoed.
Who's the ex-girlfriend stalker here? Huh? Dad?
Kieran turned pale rapidly. Behind me were my parents, father-in-law, and many relatives, all glaring at him with crossed arms.
What the hell is this?
You, who is supposed to be my husband, have been reported as the husband of a stranger. So I gathered everyone here to make the announcement. To all the relatives, too. Skylar is at school, by the way. Kieran finally seemed to give in, slumping to the ground. An elderly woman in mourning attire, likely Samantha's mother, confronted him. Hey, Kieran, you're Samantha's husband, right? What is going on here? The funeral attendees became unsettled, creating a commotion. You're Samantha's mother, aren't you? Would you mind having a conversation? I approached her and suggested we stop the hearse to talk inside the hall, surrounded by a large extended family, his father, and my parents. Kieran was completely dwarfed and trembling. Ignoring Kieran, I explained the situation to Samantha's parents. Kieran and I got married 18 years ago and have a 16-year-old son. At that point, Samantha's parents began to speak as if abruptly leaving their seats. Kieran and Samantha got married 4 years ago. It seemed their relationship started when Samantha, a bookstore clerk, was approached by Kieran, a regular customer. When he expressed a desire to marry her, she initially opposed it, citing their age difference. However, upon realizing the genuine love between them, she eventually gave her approval. Due to Kieran's busy work schedule and frequent business trips, they could only meet on weekends, but Samantha appeared happy until she passed away due to a heart attack the day before yesterday. Having heard everything, I glared at Kieran. How about you confess with your own words soon? Kieran finally resigned himself. He confessed to hiding his marital status and having been in a relationship with Samantha for 5 years. However, he didn't want to relinquish his position as the heir to the real estate company, so he led a double life.
I'm truly sorry, but this was just an affair. Please, forgive me.
Kieran, on his knees, bowed deeply to my relatives. A figure approached him, my enraged father.
What a foolish son. What have you done?
With all his might, my father shoved Kieran, sending both him and the chair flying.
Dad, why?
My father, with a stern expression, spoke coldly to the stunned Kieran.
I can't let someone like you inherit our company. Susan, what about you?
Divorce is a given, Dad.
Huh? Divorce? Not inheriting the company either. What?
As Kieran began to panic, I said to him with a decisive tone, What have you done to Samantha and me? A supposedly honest man like you can go to hell. I don't want to see this scumbag face of yours. Condemned by a multitude of people, Kieran sat there like an empty shell. Later, Kieran and I got divorced. With the help of a lawyer, I successfully obtained alimony for the affair and child support. Kieran was also estranged from my father, who refused to acknowledge him as the heir to the real estate company. Facing lawsuits from Samantha's parents, he fell into a messy legal battle. Kieran lost everything: his home, his family, and his livelihood. He seems to have rolled into a difficult phase of life, working tirelessly like a workhorse for alimony and child support. Even hearing this, I feel no sympathy at all. I can only hope that Samantha's parents receive the fullest possible restitution. I, on the other hand, am back at home with my son Skylar and living a peaceful life. My father, who seemed downcast after losing his successor, appears to have regained motivation after Skylar encouraged him, saying, Once I graduate from college, I'll take over. My father is currently saying things like, I need to stay healthy until then. I look forward to Skylar's growth and a brighter life ahead.
Mom, I'm hungry. What Haven't you eaten anything? What about Grandma? She went out to eat. What? I was on the verge of rage. Then I vowed to get back at my mother-in-law. My name is Sarah, a 35-year-old stay-at-home mom. I've been married to Walter for 5 years. We used to work together at the same company. I've always admired him for his dedication to work and trusted him as a colleague. Working together on several projects, we got to know each other well and eventually started dating. He is sincere, kind, and gentlemanly in his private life. I found myself increasingly drawn to his genuine and gentle nature. Before we knew it, 3 years have passed in our relationship. Just when I was thinking about marriage, I discovered I was pregnant. It was somewhat of a catalyst, and we decided to get married. Even though the pregnancy came first, I've always wanted to spend my life with you. Let me properly ask you, will you marry me? He said this as he handed me the ring. I was so happy that he proposed properly, and I thought how sincere and dutiful he was. I'm looking forward to our life together. I thanked him and looked forward to our married life. Then we immediately went to meet each other's parents. My parents quickly recognized his good nature and felt reassured. I was glad they approved of him. Next, we visited Walter's parents, but that's where I faced a problem. Walter's mother, Tiffany, didn't take to me. Nice to meet you. I'm Sarah. I greeted her cheerfully and politely. Walter's father, Steve, greeted warmly with a smile, but Tiffany just frowned and didn't even respond. Is she upset about something? As I thought this, she said, "So, this is a shotgun wedding, huh? Isn't that a bit improper?" Excuse me? Walter and I were shocked by her abrupt comment. "Why would you say that?" he retorted, visibly annoyed. "It shows a lack of responsibility in your relationship. Even if you get married, I'm sure you'll end up divorcing. It's embarrassing to have a wedding and then tell everyone you divorced. Plus, you'll end up just paying child support and feeling miserable." Her words were too harsh. How could she say something like that so casually? Walter clenched his fists, looking at his mother. "After all, you've never been good at making smart decisions. That's why I have to." Steve interrupted her at that point. "Enough, Tiffany. Whatever the circumstances, it's not right to speak like that about a happy occasion like marriage. Walter and Sarah are the ones getting married, and they're at an age where it's not odd for them to have children. They both have stable jobs. There's no problem here." His words finally quieted her. Walter then followed up. "We were serious about marriage from the start. The pregnancy was just a catalyst. We are ready and responsible for this marriage." "Whatever. Do as you please," she said disinterestedly. After this exchange, I found it hard to like her. Thankfully, Steve helped smooth things over, and the rest of the family meeting went well. We got married and had a lovely wedding. With a baby on the way, I decided to quit my job and focus on being a homemaker. Life with Walter was joyful and time flew by. He remained incredibly kind to me after our marriage. I got us some cake. "Oh, is today some special occasion?" "No, I just saw a cake you might like and wanted to say thanks to all the housework you do." I loved that he always expressed his gratitude. Walter also always complimented my cooking, and on weekends he'd cooked for me. "Tonight's dinner is beef stew. Let's enjoy a non-alcoholic sparkling wine to set the mood." "Oh, that sounds great. This looks delicious." He was always considerate, especially since I was pregnant. I gave birth to a healthy baby girl whom we named Lisa. Walter and I were typical doting parents, constantly admiring how cute she was. Our love for her knew no bounds. I'm going to work even harder. I want to make our family of three's life better and better. Thank you, honey. Keep up the great work as the head of our family. Our daughter grew quickly, and before we knew it, she started speaking. Mommy, Daddy. Wow, that's amazing. She's a genius. My husband and I were very happy watching her grow. We took lots of photos of her during her first Christmas, really getting into the spirit. My parents adored her, playing with her every time they visited. Grandma, Grandpa, this is for you. Oh, a dandelion. Giving flowers, how sweet. She's quite the romantic. Lisa was growing up to be a very kind child, just like her father. She would approach other children in the park and play with them. Seeing her make friends and play energetically was reassuring. Time passed, and she turned 5. But then a very sad event occurred. My father-in-law, Steve, passed away. He fell ill suddenly and didn't make it. Walter, Tiffany, and I were all deeply saddened. Tiffany was so upset that it was worrisome. The funeral arrangements were efficiently handled by Walter's sister, Heather. She's incredibly smart and capable, and I have a lot of trust in her. Walter had always told me how amazing she was, and she certainly lived up to that. After Steve's death, we had to start looking after Tiffany. Walter would regularly visit her to check in. Our house wasn't far from hers, so he made sure she was okay and didn't fall or anything while alone. I'm home. Welcome back. Dinner's ready. Ah, thanks. You look tired. Is work tough? Oh no, it's not work. It's dealing with Mom afterwards. Oh, right. She keeps complaining about the neighbors bragging about their hobbies, thinking it's a dig at her for losing her husband, and stuff like that. She's got a lot of these paranoid complaints. That sounds tough. After work, he would visit his mom, and he looked really exhausted. He was not only listening to her complaints, but also running errands for her, buying things that were only available at department stores. It was a lot of effort, and she would even complain about him being late. Maybe you shouldn't push yourself so hard. If I don't, she'll keep sending messages and calling. That's troublesome. Walter had a senior position at work, so he was often busy with work-related calls. If Tiffany kept calling or messaging, it could bury important work communications. I couldn't help much since I was taking care of Lisa, but seeing Walter so tired, I felt we had to do something. Amidst of all this, something happened. Tiffany injured her foot at home. She twisted it on the stairs and had to call an ambulance herself. When Walter rushed to the hospital, she was furious. You were so late. I had to call an ambulance myself. What if I had passed out or remained fallen? I might need care for my injured foot. The doctor said she wasn't hurt at all. No need for rehab, let alone care. Still, she made such a fuss and even demanded to move in with us. She wants to live together with us? Of course, I said no, but she keeps messaging me about it, really driving me nuts. He was clearly stressed. As his wife, I thought about how to reduce his burden. Don't go to her place after work anymore. Let's go together on weekends. As for living together, let's firmly say no. Are you sure? You don't like her much. That's true for you too. Let's also invite Heather and her child. Tiffany might enjoy that. Yeah, that's a good idea. He seemed relieved. After explaining the situation to Heather, she agreed to regularly join us on weekends. So, Walter and I, Heather, and her son started visiting Tiffany together. She seemed happy with the lively atmosphere, being alone otherwise. It's always so much fun when everyone comes over. I wish we could all live together. I was glad she was in a good mood, but something still bothered me. It was her remarks to my husband. You've always been poor at academics. Heather went to a prestigious university and landed a job at a major company, but you... She often belittled him like this. She adored Heather for her success and doted on her son. Oh, you're so clever, just like your mother. Listen to your mother. That way, you won't go wrong. I honestly thought her discriminatory attitude was not okay. My husband's fatigue was likely due to her overtly negative behavior and being constantly compared to his sister every time they met. I felt sorry and grateful for him enduring this while working hard and not burdening our family. My husband is truly a kind and sincere person. Months after we started visiting Tiffany regularly, she made this suggestion. As a thank you for always coming over, why don't the adults go out for dinner tonight? I'll take care of the kids. What? We were all surprised by her suggestion, but it was a welcome one. I have wanted to have a leisurely meal with Heather, and it had been a while since my husband and I dined out. So we took her up on the offer. We enjoyed our meal, chatting and having a good time. Around 9 p.m., we decided to head back. But when we arrived at Tiffany's house, something was off. She and Heather's son were nowhere to be seen. Only our daughter, Lisa, was in the living room watching TV while sitting on the sofa. Where's Grandma? Why are you alone? Mom, I'm hungry. What? Haven't you eaten anything? What about Grandma? She went out to eat. What? I was on the verge of exploding with anger. Both my husband and Heather were speechless. What is she doing? Then Tiffany returned nonchalantly with Heather's son. Oh, you're back already. Mom, what are you thinking? Leaving Lisa and going out? Well, I wanted to dine with my grandson. Oh, wait a minute, Mom. You took my son and left Lisa behind? Don't be so upset. Lisa is 5. She can stay alone. It's not okay to leave her alone at night. And why didn't you take her to dinner? It's a waste of money to feed her. I only wanted to spend money on the capable ones. I was furious, as was my husband, and even Heather was taken aback. She had always been aware of her mother's favoritism towards her and felt it was wrong. That's why she was always concerned about Walter, and they had a good sibling relationship. This incident left all of us furious with Tiffany, and we vowed to get back at her. After the ordeal, my husband and I prepared for the next move. Once everything was ready, we made a proposal to Tiffany. Mom, how about we live together, like you've always wanted? Oh, are you sure about that? Yeah. Actually, we're thinking of moving to a bigger place near Heather's family. You'd like that, right? Wonderful. I'll be closer to Heather's family. She was delighted, falling for our plan. We moved to a new rental with plenty of private space. Lisa was thrilled to have her own room, and I resolved to always protect her, especially with Tiffany around. As a stay-at-home mom, I could always be with her. Once we started living together, Tiffany immediately began ordering me around. Sarah, make me some coffee. What? Why should I? What do you mean? It's a daughter-in-law's duty to make coffee for her mother-in-law. Is that so? Well, I don't want to. Excuse me? She was furious at my response. You think you can talk to me like that? Yes. Infuriating. Fine, I'll make it myself. What are you doing? Don't use the coffee beans without asking. Why not? If you want to use our food or beverages, please contribute to the grocery expenses. What? You're going to charge me? Of course, don't expect to live here for free. Don't be ridiculous. I've never heard of a daughter-in-law making her mother-in-law for grocery money. Whether you've heard of it or not doesn't matter. That's our house rule. I'll get rid of such a rule. I'll tell my son about this. Go right ahead. She storms off to her room, eyes wide with anger. I made myself a coffee and relaxed. At lunch, I prepared food just for myself. Tiffany, too stubborn to come out of her room, probably planned to eat when I was out picking up my daughter, but I had already planned for that. In the afternoon, I went to pick up Lisa from kindergarten, and then we leisurely shopped at the supermarket. When we returned home, Tiffany was waiting furiously. What is this? What's wrong, Tiffany? Getting so angry will raise your blood pressure. Why is there a lock on the fridge? I can't even get a drink. It's to prevent you from using our food and drinks without permission. That's terrible. What kind of daughter-in-law are you? She seemed too hungry to continue her tirade and gulped down tap water before retreating to her room. I then started preparing for dinner. Right as it was ready, Walter returned home. I'm home. As soon as he arrived, Tiffany rushed to him. Walter, listen. Sarah is bullying me. This is outright daughter-in-law abuse. I haven't been fed anything today. Oh, really? Despite her desperate pleas, he responded coldly. Tell that woman something! Shouting, she looked at him. Walter glanced at me and asked, What's for dinner tonight? I replied, Chicken. Great, that sounds delicious. I've also chilled some beer. Awesome. He sat down at the table. Walter, tell this woman off. What should I say? Thanks for cooking? No, I haven't been fed all day. As she sat down, I did not place any food in front of her. Where's my dinner? Why would there be any for you? Feeding you is a waste of grocery money. What? Yeah, spending food money on Mom is a waste. Walter agreed with me and started eating his chicken. Tiffany realized her own words were coming back to haunt her and was speechless. You both are terrible. I'm going to Heather's. She stormed out. I immediately contacted Heather and informed her Tiffany was heading her way. Walter then packed up her belongings and put them outside. He locked the door to prevent her from returning. 30 minutes later, Tiffany rang the doorbell. Yes, who is it? Playing dumb, he answered. Hey, open up! Why, weren't you going to Heather's? I was, but she cut ties with me, saying I couldn't stay there. So you came back here, but we're also cutting ties with you. What? I put all your stuff outside. Take it and leave. Wait, what do you mean? Sarah and I can't forgive you, leaving Lisa alone and not feeding her. I'll resent that for life. And always comparing me to Heather and belittling me, I can't stand it. I no longer consider you family. Just leave. But Walter cut off the intercom. Tiffany, apparently having a breakdown outside, was taken away by the police. None of us, not Walter, Heather, or I, went to pick her up. Eventually, she realized her mistake and sent a long apology emails to Walter and me. But we were done forgiving. She managed to find a place in a rundown apartment and now works part-time, leading a meager life. She claims to have reflected on her actions, but we know she'd revert to her old ways if given the chance. We've decided never to forgive her. She should stay alone for life. Meanwhile, we as a family are happily living together, including Heather and her family in outings and barbecues. I plan to continue cherishing my husband and daughter, living happily ever after.